You want me to? I just got it.
Sorry, Conway, what?
I wanted, did you want me to record it too, just in case?
Oh, no, it records to the cloud, so we should be
Okay.
all right there. And then let me just. Okay. Well, we'll see if that, yes, it is working. All right, new thing to confuse us. All right, so apologies, and we will go ahead and get started here.
No problem.
Today is the November 30th meeting of the Lake Boone Commission. And we are starting about 7:06. And I'm going to jump through the agenda real quick, and then we're going to jump in. We have a fair amount of discussion on a couple of items that are on our agenda today. So first, we will have public comment. We have one set of meeting minutes to review. We have received our end of year report from Solitude around the herbicide treatment. So we'll have some discussion and determine if there's any actions we need to take based on that. We do have 3 bills right now for payment that I'm aware of. We'll have a quick discussion just to finalize also our submission for budget submission for Stow. And then we are going to have a little bit of a discussion about safety boat and some discussion that's going on that Conway is going to take kind of the lead for us with Stow Police. So we're going to have just a discussion amongst ourselves around that to give him our input. We'll have a little bit of time for Drawdown, Healthy Lake Boone Initiative updates, and that covers our agenda. Then we'll go to old business, new business, and set a date for our next meeting. Okay, so as a reminder, this meeting is being recorded, and we do make that recording available for a period of time, and it will go on Stow TV. So first up, public comment. Do we have anyone has something that they would like to raise to our attention?
So are we going to talk about the RFP today?
Did I not say something about that?
Yes, in the herbicide treatment year-end report and recommendations, we can fit it in there.
That sounds fine. Great, part of the action plan for that.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so it sounds like no public comment, so we will move on. Next is our meeting minutes from October 27th meeting. And Dan, I know you sent out a slight revision based on my feedback. So I think that's the version that we're going to be reviewing, approving at this point. So
Motion to approve the revised minutes as submitted by Red.
I'll second.
as submitted by Dan, I assume you
I'm
meant.
sorry, Dan. I'm
Yep.
looking at the wrong screen in front of me.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and that is all 3 of us. So that is, those minutes are approved, and Dan, you'll make the notations and also put those up on the website and get those over to Hudson.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So next is the herbicide treatment report. So on, we got a report as of, I think it was November 15th. This was after a couple of false starts with them on this. So I wanted to, just as a group, talk a little bit about this, get your feedback and identify if we want to have a representation from, set up a meeting with the biologist and or another representative from Solitude, if there's any stuff we want clarification on or further information. So just kind of we'll open it up a little. I mean, I saw a couple of potential mistakes, but nothing, yeah, nothing earth shattering on that side, just kind of confusing to me, because I think so much of it looks exactly the same, with obviously the tables.
To me, Chris, they dropped a couple of things and then there's some question on what type of score they give themselves. They used to detail the invasives and the non-invasives and give you abundance on both of them. They separated them out now, which is good, but they don't give anything about the quantity of the native and algae anymore. So they took that away, and we've always had a score of biomass, and that's totally gone. And I don't think that's a good idea for that to be
The
taken off.
biomass is the second one in the table, second column in the table. Not sure I completely understand what that is, but the second,
You're right. I'm wrong.
okay.
Okay,
so that-
I didn't see,
we're okay with
didn't see that there. My other question is, in the end, their conclusion is that it worked well. And what I see is in the fourth basin, the third basin, the Hale Cove, the Monahans Cove, things went from at the end of last year, they were sparse or trace. And at the end of this year, they were dense or moderate. So
Yeah.
I have a hard time saying it worked well. And I think that has something to do with their inattention in the whole second half of the year. And I think, one of my conclusions from that is, I mean, we have this supposed interim survey.
Yeah.
And they allege that they did that. We never get a report on it. And I would assume the reason for an interim survey is to decide whether you're on track or not. And I have to believe if we actually did that this year, those places would be better for it. So it's one of the things that I've added into the RFP to really
Yeah.
legitimize the interim survey and report as a real mid-year milestone.
Yes, and I have to agree with you. My take away from the actual tables in this, so from the survey results, was that fanwort went, despite what they say, which says that fanwort was observed at trace to sparse abundances. That's what they say in their kind of summary. It pretty much across the board went up from the pre-treatment survey.
So I have a hard time considering the program a total success.
Yeah. So is that something we want to have a discussion with Solitude on at this point?
I think it makes sense. I mean, we'll be going to be sending out the RFP shortly, I assume. And either at the same time or just before or just after, I think we ought to have that discussion.
Yeah, I really like the idea of having a meeting with the biologist or a senior person at Solitude to talk through these issues we've found here, and I think we should do it as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what do we think that meeting should take place before the RFP goes out?
Well, we want to get the RFP out as quickly as we can.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long it would take to schedule a meeting. I think the two should operate in their own independent schedules. The RFP will not, presumably we'll talk about it, but I don't think it will directly reference inadequacies or any of these outstanding questions from the Solitude implementation. It's an open RFP, and I don't think it actually changes. I don't think the results of that discussion will change what we do here. But to me, there's sort of an interesting question here about, when somebody, their bid says they're going to take care of us for the year. They don't say they're going to take care of us and it'll be more expensive if there's an extra booster or less expensive. So they've actually cut their expenses by not visiting and not revisiting, and therefore not doing it costs them something to do a second boost. And it's kind of there's a sort of I'm not sure how the economics of this work. When we do an RFP, we do a bid and they say this is what we're going to do, and they're projecting what they're going to do at some kind of a fixed price, and yet it varies what they're going to do depending on what they see. Now maybe this is a discussion for the RFP, but the two, they commingle here because we're one, they did not revisit and reboost, and so we're trying to find out what happened here.
So I have,
And we may find out something that's useful in our, finalization of the RFP.
so guys, this was the third year of the contract, am I correct?
Yep.
Yes,
And what typically happens is that next year we'll do the major treatment, not a minor treatment.
Mm-hmm.
right.
And what always happens is you do a major treatment, which pretty much cleans the lake out and should. And then the next 2 years, when you do the minor treatments, you don't necessarily get the same effect because you're kind of trying to maintain the lake. You're not doing a really big effort to clean it out again. So if you think they're gonna clean the lake out every single year, that's not what's ever been done before. They've
All
always,
right, do they ever adjust what they do mid-year because
Yeah.
it's not working?
yes, they will if it's really not working. But I'm not familiar enough with the contract anymore, but my question would be, what is our expectations of year 2 and 3 versus year 1? Year 1, we expect the lake to be weed-free pretty much. Year 2s and 3s, I'm not sure about that, and I'd have to go back and look at the contract. But there is a difference the way we did the RFPs. There's a 3-year program and you don't get the same treatment every year.
Yeah.
Now, if we want the same treatment every year, then we got to address that in the RFP.
Well, I
don't know
don't
if you're
have
saying-
to actually, we wouldn't necessarily specify what the plan of action should be. I think that's what we're going to be asking them to put forward is what would they, what would our, they and any other one that wants to respond, what's the plan they would suggest? What would they come in and do? And if they have a, a particular approach to a 3-year plan, they might be different between 2 different vendors. So
what we should be asking for is anticipated results, not anticipated treatment plans.
yes,
That's a fair way to say it.
So in our RFP, we're not going to tell them how to treat the lake. We're going to tell them what we want to accomplish by treating the lake. They're the experts. They should be telling us what to do to accomplish that.
Yep.
Any idea how we quantify that, Conray?
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't know. I think if we go back to our maps, I just pulled one up a minute ago, but we have maps of the lake when we do the survey. So, I would expect that year 1, our survey map should show, negligible weeds, invasive weeds. We're not trying to treat non-invasive weeds. So if we go back to our surveys, our survey is the only measurement we have to really measure what's going on. So the survey, after we do a major treatment survey, we should have a pretty clean lake.
I mean, we do have measures. There's trace, there's sparse, there's moderate, there's dense. So there is a scale defined if
maybe-
that's some,
Maybe the results should be only trace, period.
right.
So we can in the RFP say that the survey should only show a trace of of invasive weeds. Remember, we're not treating
Yep.
native, rather, only invasive. So like pond lilies, they're native. We don't treat them. Oh,
I think the term actually that we use is nuisance weeds.
nuisance, yeah, that's it. Nuisance
Yeah.
vegetation. Well, you gotta be careful of that one, Dan, because is a pond lily a nuisance?
And nuisance is in the eye of the beholder, but I looked up that term, and there is a sort of, it's a term of art of nuisance. Invasives imply that there's some kind of non-naturalness. Um, nuisance is a sort of a judgment call, and we specify which ones those are, at least the ones we've identified here, fanwort and so on.
Because some people have complained in other years about certain weeds, but they aren't the invasives. So our answer has been, we tolerate them.
Right.
Yeah, we have, in the past, the Concoms have not wanted us to eliminate native weeds.
Right.
That might change a little bit, because people want open water. So if we're losing open water based on native weeds, we have a little bit different problem than if we're losing it based on invasives.
So if we go back then to the report we got from Solitude, and I guess perhaps we have to go back to the original contract to see, but I thought it was structured such that they did one treatment for any given year. They do a treatment, let's say in years 2 and 3, to be more clear. They do a treatment, and after a while they come back and they see if they need to add a little more.
Yeah.
And they clearly, I don't know if they came back, but it has grown. So what they certainly didn't identify a problem. When they came back, it was at the very end was only say, okay, year's done. How'd we do? And so they skipped a step.
Well, in according to their report, they, in their program chronology, they have a thing called interim post-treatment survey, which they claim took place on 7/29/21. But that's something we've never seen, like what was surveyed and what were the results of that.
Well, that's what we need.
I don't think they've ever produced that.
Right, but that would be the thing that would tell you that something needed to be adjusted. Maybe there needed to be an extra treatment in a particular, cove or something.
So
That's why I
perhaps
say
that,
in the RFP, we need to legitimize that step.
Yes, yes,
and we also, in our call for a meeting with Solitude, we need to say we reviewed this, we have some questions. In particular, we want to see the results from the 7/29 interim survey, and see, why that didn't identify the need, because clearly it's grown further, and why is that?
right. Okay, so,
Red, you'd asked about fast test.
Yeah.
In the past, and, I understand sonar, but I don't understand these new chemicals, but in the past, we did the fast test to know what the concentration was in the lake.
Right.
And if you don't get the right concentration, you don't get the right effect.
Is that true of all the herbicides?
I don't
Henri?
know. I've stopped studying them. In the past, it was true of the two that we originally used, which the main one was dicot and sonar.
Okay.
Drawdown.
Yeah, and I don't know if they ever did fast tests. I don't recall seeing results of any fast test studies.
Last one I saw
In
was
fact, this came up as a question when Red and I were going over the RFP about, previously we specified use this fast test method. But, that was something that was developed, 20 plus years ago. And now there are new ways to assess this. And so we
now
want
we
to
just
rate
refer to the
assess without
manufacturer.
specifying it's got to be this.
So the question I have is exactly what you brought up, Dan. If you're going to use a given chemical, that chemical requires a certain concentration to be effective. How do we know you met it? And I don't care the methodology. What I'd like to know is, okay, if chemical X requires Y concentration, did we get it?
Right.
What was the concentration of Y chemical in the lake for the period that it has to be that in order to be effective.
And now the RFP just says to test as per the manufacturer's recommendations.
How do we know? I guess that's.
And, you know,
okay.
industry standards too. I mean, we're trying to test a few things. One is what's the level of intensity used and how does that compare with industry standards? Second is how is it dissipated over time? And third is how effective has it been?
I'll agree with the second two. So what we care about is the concentration of a given herbicide in the lake. And that concentration level to be effective is specified by the manufacturer.
Right. Well, that was my point number one, that did they put in the amount specified per industry standards and the manufacturer?
I'm fighting words with you a little bit, Dan, because I don't care how much they put in. What I care about is the concentration they achieve. I don't care if it takes 1 pound or 10 pounds to get the right concentration. What I care about is once they've applied it, you know, a week later, do we have the correct concentration in the lake?
Yeah, I think we're saying the same thing, just using different
Okay.
words.
Yeah, I think so too.
My understanding is some like sonar are slow acting. So you have to watch and monitor the concentration where maybe diquat's more immediate and you do it and basically you're done.
Yeah, you're correct. We never ever measured the concentrations of diquat because of exactly what you said.
Okay. It does the job. And then you got a different job.
Right. So I don't know how we put it there, you know, the survey will tell us if they were effective. How often are we requesting surveys? Maybe we need to do them more often.
Well, yeah, like once. They didn't do it once.
Like they didn't do it at all last year, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, no, they say they did. So sure, they did it on 7/29 and they must have concluded didn't need anything more, but maybe that was the wrong interpretation, or I don't know why it has more now than it did then.
Right. Okay, so I know we're going kind of a little back and forth, which is very natural, right, for us, because of where we are between this report and the RFP. So I want to kind of close on the report piece if we can, because unless there's any other further very specific things in the report, it sounds like the next step for this is for us to set up time with Solitude and maybe just walk through it, and we could potentially ahead of time, see them with some of our key questions. But we're going to want to have a conversation, because we can guess at things, but that's not going to get us very far. So I will take the lead on setting something up, given that we want to have Conray and Dan, all three of us probably in that meeting. It will have to be a posted LBC meeting. So it will be a public meeting at that point. So
Single agenda item.
Single agenda, correct.
Yeah. Yep. Do you need a recommendation for that, or can we just go ahead and do that?
No, I think we can just go ahead and do that.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna put aside for the moment the actual report and continue the discussion, I think, a bit more around the RFP for feedback for Red and Dan on that.
Right, so let me just put a little bit of context on this. As you recall, at the last meeting, we decided to go ahead and do an RFP. We really hope we can get other bidders, and we're trying to make sure that we're providing, on the one hand, a clear description of what we're looking for and sufficient information so that a bidder can respond knowledgeably if they haven't, like Solitude has an advantage because they've been doing the lake. And so we want to provide the information they need. We're also trying to adapt the process into Stow. Now, Denise, town administrator, has sort of new methods for doing the RFP, certain procedures. So we're trying to integrate those. So what Red and I have done so far is taken a standard RFP package. In fact, the one that was used for with the Healthy Lake Boone to get our our bid for now Brown and Caldwell, that same package, and then the inside part, which describes what we need, came from the previous bid, and thank you, Conray, for finding that. So we blended those together. Red is taking the lead on this, so I'd like to kind of hand it over to Red, but just to say the steps from here. We're going to, assuming that we get approval to proceed with this, we're going to continue with discussions with Denise. Also, I checked in with Pam from Hudson, and although it's a Stow RFP, Hudson's involved, and we're now on the agenda for Thursday night at the Hudson Concom, to at least keep them informed and get a useful input from them on this. So why don't I then hand it, and we want to get the RFP out as soon as we can, because there's timeliness here, but Red, back to you.
So like Dan said, I mean, I started with the last RFP that was done in 2016. There's a few changes of substance that I added, and I think we should. The one I mentioned before is the idea of a useful interim report so that we get to our expectations. I think Conray's idea that we define those expectations is perfect. I think actually if we have a call with Solitude in the meantime, I think we can raise that question with them. If we say our goal going forward is going to be never to get worse than trace or never to get worse than sparse, and they say, well, that's just impossible technically, we could learn something that'll help the RFP generation here. But I think adding in a metric of our expectations is a great idea. One of the other things that's been discussed along the way is, do we put in termination conditions for performance? Now, I don't know whether that belongs in the RFP or just the final negotiation of a contract. That I figured we'd end up talking to Denise about that when we get to that point. Dan and I also talked about, it's a pretty long list of things in the proposals coming back, and we may slim that down a bit, just do a little sanity check on all the things that were specified in there as far as proposals coming to us. And if some of it's just old bullshit, just get rid of it and get down to the critical things that we want to hear from an applicant.
Sounds good to me, Red.
I mean, everything else that I've added is pretty much cosmetic. And, one of the other things that that we addressed in there was the number of meetings that they need to attend. And basically we put a pre-meeting, an interim meeting, and a final meeting, and put in worst case, both with Stow and with Hudson audiences and Concom. Now, the words as it's written where I started talks about availability. Now, availability doesn't literally say who pays, which is where we came to a rub this year when we wanted them to go to a meeting and they said, well, that'll be another $500. So I don't know whether I need to use stronger words in there than availability. Any thoughts?
Yeah, included is a good number, word. If you want
Yeah.
them to include attending 2 meetings a year,
Yeah,
I wouldn't use the word availability. I would say part of the RFP is that you will attend 2 meetings per year with whatever the, LBC for sure, but if the Concoms are interested. And what I would do with the Concoms is I would have the meeting be a LBC meeting and invite the Concoms. And then have
Sure,
Solitude. I wouldn't
Right.
say you gotta go to a Concom meeting. I would say you gotta come to an LBC meeting, invite the Concoms ahead of time and let anyone from those meetings that want to come. Because, they have so many people, they don't have the same restrictions we have about attendance.
But between the two towns and adding an interim step, we kind of took worst case, the number up to 6 meetings.
Yeah, but I don't think we need that much. They're gonna charge us for it. So
Yeah.
do we want to pay for them? They're gonna charge us.
Well, I think the point about, the point about charging is that we specify the number of meetings and it's their cost to participate in the meeting. And we're fine with virtual. I mean, that's what obviously we're doing now. They do, of course, have to visit the lake when they're doing their assessment. That can't be virtual, but the meetings can be virtual.
I don't know, Dan, I heard that new satellite you put up to measure the weeds from space.
There you go.
We just need access to it.
There you go.
Yeah, to watch when Solitude comes.
Yeah, that's right. Spying down there.
So I agree with Conray. I think that 6 is a large number.
Yeah.
I think if what we're saying is there are going to be specific points in time that we're going to want to probably have conversation, and that's going to be, sometime after perhaps the initial survey, right? To understand it and decide, be a part of, and maybe the Concoms want to also be a part of understanding, okay, what's going to be the treatment plan? Okay, so that's one. Then we would have.
Why don't we just invite Hudson Concom when
Yeah.
we're having that?
No,
that
I agree.
definitive
I think
Yeah.
all of them should just be a session that's focused on a
Yeah.
particular goal, and the folks that want to or need to be in that attend it. So we have to.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Have it an LBC organized meeting
Right.
to which both Concoms are invited.
Right.
And that's the context in which this takes place.
Correct.
Yep, okay.
So then I think we're really talking about, probably 3, likely at most 3.
Yep.
And that doesn't, if we for some reason have to have something else, we would talk with, the vendor
Yeah,
at that.
I mean, if we get an interim report and it looks clean, there's no need for a meeting.
Correct. Unless we have questions about it.
I'd be a little bit more blunt. I would not, what I would say that they're invited to send a representative. Because they can't send the whole crew, because then they'll have the same open meeting problems we have. Yeah, number one.
You're talking about the Concoms.
Yeah,
Concom.
Concom. And number 2, if a Concom wanted to have a full-blown meeting with Solitude, they should pay for that, not us.
Well, so wait a minute. If LBC has a meeting and invites the Stow and Hudson Concoms, and if more than half of either of those come to the meeting, it's an open meeting. So they're not violating open meeting because it's our open meeting, it's just not theirs.
It becomes a joint board, a joint commission meeting at that point. So it just has to be posted that way. So it is a joint
Okay.
meeting between X and X and X, right? Whatever.
Okay.
So if they want to have a whole lot and they want it to be an official meeting, then they
Okay.
also can have
Yep.
that be a joint meeting.
Yep.
We don't have to worry about that right this moment, but I think the thought of we shouldn't be trying to schedule 6 meetings, or
Yeah.
plan
So,
6
but-
meetings.
but I also think that, Red was saying, if the interim report looks fine, then we don't need a meeting. I think we do need a meeting. I think that's exactly the problem we've had with Solitude, is that once a year we'll talk with somebody. We miss and so I think we should say there will be at 3 meetings, beginning, middle, and end. And the beginning is to set the stage for what treatment, explain what they found in their initial survey. Second meeting is after they've done it and they're doing soon enough an interim report, and we talk with them about it. And then the third meeting is when they finish their final report and they want to, if in case there are any questions.
Yeah,
Good with
I think that should be our thought process. I agree that those are the three, if we had three. I don't think we have to put that in the RFP. What I think we have to do is simply say, we expect that, to be able to set up mutually acceptable, meetings with the, with your, whichever experts or whatever, resources with the right knowledge, approximately 3 times in a year. And leave it at that, because it might be, we don't need one, but we need something with Concom for an order of conditions thing. So there may be a different reason that we need something, and I don't think we need to specify the
Well,
why.
the question, and we're talking about the meetings that we're requiring the bidder to commit to attending.
Correct. So all we need to say is approximately how many. Throughout the year, we expect that we will need them to participate in, approximately 3 meetings. And leave it at that, so that, where they have the correct representatives participating.
which is
Okay.
pretty much the way it used to be, especially before Solitude. In the early days of this whole treatment, that's exactly what we did. And
Sure.
because it was new and it was so controversial back then, Lee used to come to our meetings. He'd come as much as we wanted him to, but, so yeah, I believe we need 3 meetings a year specified is great, Chris. I like what you say.
Yeah. So, but I think, it's just a number, so just tweaking that in your RFP, I think is all you need to do. Don't have to
Okay.
specify what. One of the things I'm hoping that we can somehow incorporate into this is just the expectation that we have, advance warning. I know you put in for the actual treatment itself, but I'd like for us to know when they're going to be on the lake. So when they're coming to do surveys, that's one of the things that we've had a problem with, is
Yep.
if we knew when they're going to be on the lake with, a couple of days notice at least, then we have the opportunity to have someone shadow them, et cetera.
Right.
But
Yeah.
when we just get a thing that says, oh, they were on this date, that's not very helpful. So I just think setting the
Right.
expectation of that is something that's important.
Yep. Okay.
Chris, again, you're going back to the way we used to do it. We used to always know when they were coming. I've been out with them in their boats multiple times, when they were doing treatments.
Yeah.
When they were doing surveys. That's when they used to tell us when they were coming.
Right. So a couple of other thoughts, and Red and Dan, I'm happy to just, kind of offline, I read through this today, had a number of thoughts on it. I don't know that we want to go through them all on the meeting, but a couple of things was just that I think that, aside from the ones we have already talked through, I'm not sure. I wanted to get feedback. The concept of giving them one of our previous annual reports, I don't think we need to do that. I'm not even sure I want to do that. So what?
Well, so here's the thinking. So,
Yep.
We're asking companies to bid to say how much will it cost to deliver the services that we've just described here.
Yes.
Now, Solitude has visited the lake and done treatments and has that knowledge that they've done over several years. So they can say, yeah, we know exactly what it costs us. And so we're bidding X amount of dollars, right? And now there's another company, X, that hasn't been to the lake, has no idea of the scope of the weed problem. And really their only smart response would be to say, well, as part of our process, we will study the lake and we will see what the dispersion of where the weeds are, what the past records has been. And from that, we'll produce a budget and a recommendation. So what I'm suggesting at least is that we provide them whatever is the most useful public information that is that conveys the nature of the lake and the weeds and the history of treatment, so that they have a common base of expertise. Now, I think the most useful way to do this is either the pre-treatment analysis and plan, or the post-treatment report. But that is the only way I can think of to make it a viable way for somebody to come in and say, here's our bid.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I struggle with, is there another way for us to do that without giving one vendor the other vendor's report?
Yeah,
Well,
know,
is that report public?
yeah. The way you can do that is you can put further information, further data available upon request. Let them ask for us for data that they need to do their bid, rather than assuming we know what they need.
Well, I guess the first question is, can we provide it? Whether we provide it when they ask for it, or whether we provide it just pro forma with the RFP, is that information public?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it would be.
If it's in our minutes, it's public.
Do we
Yeah.
ever post it as part of our minutes?
Do we ever include it with our minutes?
Yeah.
That'd be a question for the town clerks.
I don't think we haven't included it in my experience so far. We haven't included it in our minutes. We have included it, for example, as a document at the end, when we do our collection of everything that is
Yeah.
our official documentation. If it's a document we reviewed in a meeting, like a report, that does end up in our archive. So I guess in that sense, it is public.
I mean, we're defining in the RFP the invasives that we're dealing with. I mean, we could define the 29-point map to give somebody an idea of, what has worked for comprehensive coverage of the lake, but leave the rest of it to their knowledge of Massachusetts lakes.
Is there anything from the Healthy Lake Boone initiative that could be useful to them, so that it isn't another vendor's work product? I mean, it would be called Well and Brown, but that's okay.
Well, we could, in fact, the Healthy Lake Boone Initiative could say, here are the appendices for our report. We're posting them, and one of them is the plan and implementation done by, in this report. And Healthy Lake Boone Initiative posts it, and then it's available publicly, I suppose. But I think we're kind of doing a dance around a question that we don't know the answer to. Which is there any reason to hold back on this? And we're saying, well, maybe if we just gave them a map, or maybe just a list. But I'm thinking we actually, and you said it, Chris, we need to check with the town of Stow to see if we can, and if there are any constraints on that, what those are. So I guess I think we need to table. Or not, table's the wrong word, but we can't make we need that information before we decide how to proceed.
Right, or else yes, I agree with that, or we just don't reference it as something we're absolutely committing to giving them as part of the RFP.
I can take on the action item of checking in with the town to see, because it actually is relevant to other reports. So why don't I take that action to follow up and see if the plan and report can be public and can be provided. So if the answer to that is yes, well, I guess maybe the larger question is, does LBC need to review the RFP again when we're done, or because I'm concerned about time?
Yes.
And so, or can we once we've gotten Denise's approval, and I think we've raised all the topics. It's just a question of format and process. Can we get the conceptual approval for us to proceed? In which case, we'll decide, based on the answer to that, whether to include it.
Dan, the question I would have is, do other departments in the towns include all that data when they put an RFP out?
You could certainly see, I could certainly see Solitude crying foul if the RFP package goes out and it has their work product in it.
Yeah.
Mr. Gelpi might have a good input.
I don't know if it's good, but I will tell you that from a distance, thinking about this, if a vendor does not get all the background information he can get his hands on before he's bidding on the project, you begin to wonder, what are they bidding on? I mean,
Right.
you've got to know what they're bidding on to come up with an intelligent response. And it would be up to them to ask for or search out what exists. Doesn't answer that legal question, but I mean, they got to do something. They can't just throw out numbers.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And Red and Dan, I still I'm curious what the town thinks, but at the end of the day, without it putting in that we're going to give it to them, we could include the annual report on our website. It is an annual, it is a report. We could put
There
it
you go.
on, and
Yeah.
they're going to go to that. You're using that site for their place to look for things. So if they look hard enough, they'll see something. So
It certainly is possible for us to, if we need to do a little bit of a dance around this, to say that we're posting this onto the Healthy Lake Boone Initiative website. And we're saying that anybody who responds can refer to any document, and they're available in this section of the Healthy Lake Boone Initiative website.
or even on the LBC website.
LBC minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it can be a document, just like we have drawdown
Mhm.
things, etc. We could put it up there on the LBC site because it is in fact an official document related to the LBC and the lake over the past year. So I think we can work around it. I just don't think we necessarily want to send it
Yeah.
to. So
Well, so let's take this, Red, you and I, as guidance, that we need an answer to this question about what the
Yeah.
official allowable is. And
Yeah.
through that, we'll take some kind of solution of posting it on the LBC website or the Healthy Lake Boone, or even including sections of it in the background information for whoever's bidding or something. But we'll take your guidance on that and just make a judgment. The question is, do we need another LBC meeting to review the final RFP, or can we just go ahead with this? Because I am concerned about time.
Conrad, do you recall, because that was before me, do you recall what happened the last one? I don't think I ever, well, actually, I was on board the last time there was one. I just wasn't a part of that process. I don't recall it coming to the LBC for official approval. I think in that last one, Don, worked with whomever, and it just went forward.
I think you're correct.
Okay, so I
Remember the LBC.
I think what we can do is provide you with our individual input, period. Like I'll send along my
Yeah,
thoughts.
you should you send it directly to Red. And actually, I don't know whether it's written notes or whether it's a discussion, but if you can do it,
with Red.
by say midday tomorrow or something. I don't know what your schedule is, but we're going to work on doing a revision of the consolidation. We'll go ahead and do that.
Okay.
And I need to get it to the Hudson Concom by the end of the day tomorrow, so they have a chance to look at it.
Okay.
Chris, I believe that in the past, we did what we're doing now, and the RFP was pulled together and sent around to the members.
Yeah.
And and it was kind of an inverse proposition. If everybody thought what they saw was what we agreed to, we just let it go. If someone saw something they thought was objectionable in the RFP, then we had to pull a meeting together and deal with it.
So editorial comment you could give, but anything that is of a substantive nature, we might have to call another meeting.
You can't have discussion. But for instance, you know, if you send me a copy of the RFP and I send it back to you and I say, hey, just what we agreed to, that's fine. If I send back a note to you and say, the RFP is not what we agreed to, we need a meeting to talk about it. In my opinion, again, we're not doing any deliberation. You're just letting the members of the concept of LBC get a look at the final RFP, and if they have an objection, they can then raise it. I think that's okay, because there's no deliberation involved.
That seems fair enough. So we can individually, you know, if we've already got other input, get it to Red individually. Like I won't even copy you guys. It's just my thoughts.
Yep.
And then Red and Dan, you guys are gonna, based on whatever feedback you have and et cetera, you're gonna have put out another version of this anyhow by Thursday, sometime on Thursday. You can get that out to us, and that will.
Well, why don't we wait until we get it after any further input from Hudson Concom? And I don't know, frankly, when Denise is going to give feedback. So I think we really need Denise and Hudson Concom's input before getting it back to you.
Okay, so at that point, you'll make tweaks, you'll send it out, and unless we feel, you know, if even one of us feels like, okay, this is not representative of what we expect, then we would have to have a meeting. But as long as, you know, you are our representative, Dan, from the LBC, and of course, Red is taking leadership on this. So I think we're okay.
All right.
Sounds good to me. So
Good.
I'll maybe Red, I'll talk to you offline. Cool. See. Okay.
Good.
All right. Thank you. And Red, you and Dan have clearly done an awful lot of work. There's a lot of reading today. This afternoon.
We're getting closer every time we talk about it.
Yeah. Thanks, Red.
Halfway there.
Hey guys, thanks for your effort. I actually know how hard this is.
Well, we stole from your work. So you know, if you read it, it's words that were in previous versions. So
Okay, that's what you're supposed to do. I'm just
That's right.
Flattery.
personally, I'll tell you, that's good.
Fair enough. Okay, so next thing on our agenda is bills for payment. So I believe somewhere in my mess here, we have 3 bills. So one is a reimbursement to Conray in the amount of $255 for the shrink wrapping the patrol boat. So do I have a motion for that?
I move we reimburse Conray and compliment him on the accuracy of his prior assessment, which was only off by $5.
Absolutely. All right, and I second that.
Yeah, the only discussion I would give is he gave us a break.
Yeah.
I saw that.
Next year, we should get an estimate a little higher.
Well, thank him for doing that.
I will.
Thanks. All right, so any further discussion on that one? All right, if not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and that is all 3 of us, and that motion passes. All right, and second one is for our Zoom monthly subscription, and that is $14.99. And that one would be reimbursement to me. So do we have a motion for that?
I move that we reimburse you for this.
And a second? All right, any further discussion? Okay, and all in favor?
Aye.
And that is all three of us in favor, and motion passes. That one. And then the last one, this one won't probably go so quick. So the last one is our solitude, our November solitude bill. So that one is for $1,562.50. Again, this is basically the final, this is the final milestone payment for this contract. Do we feel like we need to have the meeting with them around the report before we approve this one?
I believe we should meet with them first.
Be ideal.
Conrad?
I'll go with either way. So what are we going to accomplish by meeting with them?
We're good.
I'm sorry, Red?
We want to understand the report and why they classify this as a successful program, which so many things have gone sideways.
So
What I want to hear.
why don't we do a conditional approval that will approve paying the bill with a condition that Solitude has at least a con call with us on the report?
Well, I
Yeah.
can't submit the bill until after that meeting then anyway. And that's going to be a public meeting. So we could, in theory, have it be a two-topic meeting. As long as we're comfortable, we'll approve the bill at the end of the meeting.
Okay, I'm good with that.
Okay.
Okay, so that one we are going to hold until after. Okay, all right. Are there any other bills I'm not aware of?
No, I have a question though.
Okay.
Do we know how we did on budget against last year's budget?
Oh, I didn't pull that today, Conrad. I think we're doing fine.
Okay, because we got till next spring, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Excellent.
All right. So, next is the budget. Hang on, I have to pull that up on my. Okay, so as you guys will remember, sorry, I'm looking away because I'm looking at my laptop. We basically approved our overall budget. We approved exactly what we are requesting from Hudson in our last meeting. And we will have to request the specific amount from Stow. They have not sent out the documents yet for that. They are supposed to be getting those from Denise the beginning of December. So I think we can still move forward with approving what's going to be on those because we've already approved our overall. So in this case,
Chris,
yes,
just a comment. We've already approved our budget.
we've approved our budget and we approved basically our submission to Hudson.
Which required us approving our yearly budget. So we can't
Correct.
use that now. So the only question is what, how do we have to format that to meet Stow's formatting requirements? It's not what is our budget anymore.
Correct, but we haven't submitted a budget to them yet.
Well,
So we could have a motion to submit the budget as approved in the October.
Why do we need that?
before we do that, Chris, were there any issues that came up that you wanted to change that budget? And if so, do we have to deal with that? But if you're fine with it, then what Conrad's saying is just, it's pro forma here.
Right. No, there's no changes.
We don't need a motion then.
Well, I think we said that we only officially approved it for Hudson. So if we just approve it for Stow now, then we're clean.
I'm good for that.
So I move that we approve the budget for the purposes of submitting to Stow, and then it match what we also approved last meeting.
Can I word that a little differently?
Sure.
So I'd like the motion to say that we want to approve we want to submit the approved budget to Stow in the format that Stow requests. Because Stow is going to ask us to do it a little bit differently than Hudson did, but it's the same numbers.
Well, it's They don't care, well, for example, Hudson doesn't care what we're asking Stowe for. They care what we're asking Hudson for. So our
Correct.
budget request to Hudson was a very specific amount, which we have justification for based on our full budget. So I still think it would be, it can't hurt, right? To simply indicate what we're the Stowe portion that's going to go on the documentation to Stowe. Because we are asking Stowe for, a specific amount on that, to go on that. So that amount would be $7,733.
Okay,
But in Stowe, we do patrol differently than we do it in Hudson.
Correct, and that's why there's a difference. So that's why we had to have very specific set of numbers for Hudson, which was the third plus the amount for patrol, and for Stowe, it's 2/3, and it does not cover. We don't have an additional thing that we have to budget for patrol. And I got confirmation from Mike that continues to be the case. We don't budget for his patrol stuff, so.
I'm not worried about that, Chris. What I'm worried about is just, the LBC itself is a separate entity. We're not Stowe, we're not Hudson, we're a state authorized board effectively. And we have a budget as a board. Now that budget gets funded by the towns. But I just want to make sure there's no way that we represent a different budget to each town, because that'll get us in trouble.
no,
No.
so we're submitting the Stowe portion of the approved budget
I
to
like
Stowe.
that wording. That's good wording.
All right, I think that's mostly your wording that's slightly adapted, but I move that we submit the Stowe portion of the approved budget to Stowe for the amount of $7,733.
I will second that.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that is all three of us, so that is unanimous. Okay, so in the next couple of days, I expect to get the email that says, send that stuff in, I'll deal with that.
I found them.
Okay, so the next thing is the safety boat discussion. So this is really for us to just give Conray, whatever thoughts, Dan, you and I have as he goes into.
I'm going to attend that meeting tomorrow morning.
Correct. So
Okay.
that's what we're just trying to give you our thoughts, since you're going to be representing us in that meeting. And that's not a decision-making meeting anyhow. It's really, it's really a sensing meeting to see who's interested, what the challenges might be, what the benefits might be, so as you know, I threw together my thoughts, and I don't.
They were very good. I gave you a little comment on them.
Yep. So Dan, I don't know if there was anything else you just wanted to pass along to Conray as he's, a part of the discussion tomorrow.
Yeah, well, I think, Conray has handled this over the years, so you have more expertise, Conray, than anything I might add. The only topic that came up that was sort of a little bit sort of tricky is that, what does it mean? Is there any way to have some kind of shared resource? And I see Conray shaking his head. The creative idea was, can the police use the LBC boat? And if so, would a new boat that's called an LBC boat, not a police boat, serve that purpose of letting both groups have access to it?
So, I've got probably pretty strong feelings on it, having lived through this a few times. Number one is the only people that can drive a police boat are a police boat. I mean, the police, period. So if you call it a police boat, automatically we cannot use it. So I repaired the police boat several times over the years. They used to bring it to my dock when it was broken, and a few times I fixed it and I took it back to them. But, You can do that, but that's all you can do. You can't go out and drive that boat around the lake on patrol. You can't go out and use that boat to pull the buoys out or set the buoys and things like that. So we cannot use a police boat for anything, any of those functions.
Can,
He wants to call it a community boat, not a police boat.
all right, well, could the police use our boat?
They have in the past. The answer to that is yes.
Are there any constraints on what they can do when they're on our boat? Can they,
None.
well then, if we call the boat not a police boat, but call it the LBC boat, and the police can use it and we can use it, isn't that a way to achieve the result of a shared boat?
Maybe. The problem I've run into in the past on that is the police, and I don't want to throw people under the bus, but I will. The police boat this year was pretty good, but in a lot of years, it's been a lot of downtime. So the question you run into is who's going to take care of that boat? Who's going to keep gas in it? Who's going to keep it running? You know, where you're going to dock it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So all that stuff gets complicated really fast. So if we have an LBC boat, where are we going to park it? Are we going to park it down where the police boat's been and where no one gets to watch it? You know, someone has to take care of that boat. In the past, that's been a big issue.
Well, I guess maybe the question that underlies this is whether there's, I remember, you know, Chief Mike had suggested the idea of some kind of a shared, getting a new boat that was shared in some way. And there may be that's actually a bad idea. Maybe even if you set aside the questions of why you can't do it, but if we were able to have one boat that was shared, that was a better boat than you could get otherwise, maybe that's a bad idea. Maybe we want two boats, police one and LBC another, because there are advantages of that.
That's my opinion.
Right, well, that's the discussion that should take place tomorrow, right? It's just throwing things out there. I'm gonna go ahead and forward what I threw together over to Mike, just so he has it. It's not an LBC perspective. It's simply my thoughts not being at the meeting. And it's not even a conclusion.
Just remember that again, you get into this sticky little issue that LBC owns the boat. Stow doesn't, Hudson doesn't.
Yep.
Our whole existence as an entity gets a little sticky at times. You know, so let's say we were going to sell the boat. You know, I donated the boat to LBC. I didn't donate it to Stow or Hudson. So if we were going to get a new boat, that's still our boat. It doesn't belong to the towns.
Well, yeah, it's interesting because so where does that show up that it is LBC owned? Like, is there a, you know, a document that says that? Is there a bill of sale that, or something that says, because clearly Stow,
I believe when I donated it to LBC. And I'd have to go find that donation paper. And the two towns each had to accept it.
interesting. Okay, well, I'm just wondering because it seems like insurance seems to be going through Stow and that sort of stuff. So
That's because Stow is our fiduciary, is that the right word? They handle our legal, our insurance, our everything, and Hudson just pays for it.
huh, okay.
So I don't know what the infrastructure, I don't know what the right word is, but Stow provides that stuff for us.
Yep.
But we are still a state entity. We're not a town entity. We're a state entity appointed by the towns.
Right.
So, and that's always been a little sticky on some of this stuff.
Yep.
So I'm under the impression that it won't work for all the reasons you guys just brought up.
What won't work?
A single boat for everybody.
Mhm.
And did you see the note from the fire chief in Hudson?
Yeah, he clearly would not, has not, and presumably wouldn't use it. If we're clear that the desired goal is to have two boats, not one, then, you know, that helps clarify whether we, otherwise we can be creative, I imagine, of how to make it one better boat. But if it's preferred to have two, then, you know, that sets the stage for your discussion with them.
Yeah, if the Stow police boat is upgraded, and that could be as simple as a new motor. In other words, they could spend, you know, 8 or 10 grand, put a good motor on that boat, and get more years out of it. That boat is waterlogged, if you know what that means.
Yep.
The insulate between the hulls, between the bottom hull and the decking, there's insulation. Water gets into that, it's like a sponge, it soaks it up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why that boat is so heavy, because it's got water in it that never goes away. You can't get rid of it. You know, but they could get a lot more use out of that boat simply by putting a good motor on it. You know,
And I think that's all part of the discussion that'll take place tomorrow, Conrad. I think
Yeah.
Mike is not saying that, you know, this is the direction he's going. He's looking for input. So, okay, so I think,
you know, a new motor for us might be 8,000, but that's 2/3, 1/3. So the investment by the towns is minuscule.
yes,
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I think perhaps we've sort of given
Yep.
clearly, again, Conrad, you're the expert here, and you know, you're the one who's going to that meeting. So
Yeah. But I liked your thoughts, Chris. They were good. You're always good at that stuff. I really appreciate it.
yeah. So as I said, I'm going to just pass along that, which is not an LBC perspective, right? That this is just my thoughts, and perhaps a way to structure a conversation. But I'll pass it along to Mike, so he'll have the same thing you have, Conrad.
Yeah, I think Mike's has good intentions. I just don't see how it works.
Yeah, and I think he
110%.
may give up after the meeting. There may be no other interest, right? There may be no
yeah,
interest.
and it may be that, you know, I think, you know, Conrad, if you can just, you know, lend at least a listening ear and find out what his thinking is, because there may be
will.
some other thoughts behind it that would be helpful to know.
Well, I'll write up a quick synopsis of what goes on and send it out. But from what I saw from the fire chief, I mean, Hudson rather, they already have 2 boats.
Right.
So they're not interested really. And I've offered our boat up to them for years on end, and they've never, ever been interested.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So I think we're set on that. Thank you. And thank you for being our representative tomorrow on that.
You're welcome.
So next is Drawdown and Healthy Lake Boone Initiative update. So Dan, any
Yeah,
update on
for Drawdown, I'll hand it over to Dave.
Drawdown? Okay.
Well, the lake is coming down. There's been a pretty good trend as the rain has at last subsided. Any rain that we've had has been pretty inconsequential in the recent couple of weeks. And so it's down within an inch or two of where we've hit bottom in previous years. So I think as of tomorrow, December 1st, I think we should conclude that it has been satisfied.
Good.
Sounds good.
Well, thanks as always, Dave, for monitoring that. And interestingly, we're getting a much more detailed perspective on what influences the lowering and the raising of the lake, how long it takes for a storm to infuse through the land, and you know, and so on. And once we get our Healthy Lake Boone report, I think we'll really have some pretty powerful insights on this whole drawdown and what it says about the nature of the ins and outs of the lake. In regard to the Healthy Lake Boone initiative itself, there's nothing really important to report. We have completed all of our metrics. Big thank you to all the volunteers for doing that. We're now in the process of study. We, especially Brown and Caldwell, of studying all the data. I believe at the last meeting, Kirk gave a little bit of a report on some of the insights that we're finding. And as soon as we get that report, a draft of it, we'll share this with the LBC. There will be, the grant itself continues through to June 30th. There is work still to be done on developing recommendations based on what we find, but at this point, there's nothing new to report.
Excellent.
Excellent that there's nothing new to report. We can move on with the
No,
meeting.
excellent that it's just moving along. And I was just thinking that it seems to have flown by because it's a 2-year grant, right?
Yeah, well, actually, it's a little bit funny because it's a year that ends June 30th. So the
Yep.
first half of the year, the first quote year was really only 6 months.
Ah,
Okay, it's real, and now we have a year that started June 30th. That's why it's a little
Got
bit deceptive.
yeah. Okay, that makes sense. 'Cause I'm like, geez, been
Yep.
2 years. Dick, did you have a question?
Yeah, following up on that discussion earlier about the availability reports, the solitude thing. Now, when this is completed, how will this be available to the great unwashed?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question, Dick. And by the way, we miss you. We hope you're having fun down there in Florida.
Well, thank you.
But yes, we want to disseminate in whatever effective ways we can. There are some sort of requirements that obviously we will through the LBC, through the LBA, through each of the Concoms, but we really want to have a wider dissemination of the insights as well as the recommendations. Because, to put this into the larger context, all our insights are worthless if there's no sort of useful output of action for dealing with eutrophication or other kinds of issues that we're dealing with. So the recommendations are really crucial to disseminate to the broader community. And if you have any suggestions on, expanded ways to do that, but certainly, public meetings, the annual LBA meeting, the Healthy Lake Boone Initiative website, are sort of some of the key pathways.
Thank you.
Excellent. So, are we all set on that agenda item, Dan? Okay.
I have an old business question.
Yes, old business. We're on old business now.
For the meeting tomorrow morning, I don't see the Zoom link. Has he set it out and I just can't find it?
He did have it in his email. I think the original email, or I'd have to go back and look, but I know he did have one in his email.
Okay, because I'm looking at his emails right now and I don't see it, but doesn't mean it's not here. Oh, maybe this is it. Yeah, no, I'll have to search for it, but right now, on a quick search, I couldn't find it.
Yeah, I don't have it at the top of my head here, but I do remember seeing it, so it
Okay.
does exist.
I remember seeing it too. It's up, but why? It's interesting. I can't find it.
Yeah, so I'll look when we are off and,
Okay, I appreciate that.
okay.
And
Okay,
Chris,
yes,
just for information, one more back on the solitude report. Of course, at the end, there's always a management recommendations.
yes,
And they're often the same year to year, but they did suggest possibly trying a different herbicide for the milfoil.
Yeah.
They do talk about additional dicot treatments. They talked about budgeting for monthly algae sampling, talked about
Yeah.
low dose alum, which they seem to mention every year. And they also mentioned rodeo for balanced water lily growth. So just for completeness.
And just to be clear, those were not simply a copy and paste from last year.
No, all of those except for the one that references this clipper.
Yeah.
Flumiox, so whatever, I can't even say it. The spot treating thing, that for fan ward, that seems to be a new one, but the rest was identical to last year.
Right.
So it's not new insight. And I think that's part of what we would want to talk to them about. Right? It's just, okay, yeah, this is what you said last year, but we seem to see different results. Why would we have the same recommendation if results are not, you know? So anyway.
Okay.
Yep. So, but definitely this clipper was a new one I hadn't seen yet. Okay, thanks, Fred. All right, do we have any other old business? Okay, so new business, obviously the meeting with Solitude, because that will end up being a posted meeting, so I don't think we can figure out when. We can talk about when we talk about next meeting, yeah, what might be possible dates, and I can then check with Solitude to see if they can make those. Any other new business? We will have to submit our annual report, but I think that's in January, February to the towns, so don't need to go through that yet.
Chris, I found the Zoom meeting.
Okay, great. Excellent.
You know, I don't know if it's relevant or appropriate for us to discuss, but I did see that Stow will begin collecting an excise tax on boats. And it's, you know, it's not our decision, it's not our issue. But I wonder if it's appropriate topic, or we just sort of acknowledge that that is something that came up and we move on with our lives.
The latter.
I'm curious, Conrad, does Hudson already
For years,
levy that?
for many years.
Yeah, interesting.
So there is, you're obligated to pay an excise tax if it's in the state of Massachusetts on a certain date.
And I think that we should just understand that that is revenue goes into the kitty of the town. It's not revenue that is supposed to go to, that's supposed to go for expenses related to boats. It is just an additional revenue that goes into the town. So it doesn't impact on our budget in any way.
Correct.
Although it was an interesting thing, so maybe we can throw that onto our agenda. It's not ours, you know, ours to define anything, but in the Stow Independent, there was an interesting notation in their article that said something about Lake Boone.
Lake Boone is among the bodies of water that benefit from the Municipal
Yep.
Waterways Improvement and Maintenance Fund.
Yep.
I wonder what that means.
Yeah, I know.
We have got
Back
some
up to
grants
the
over the
maintenance.
years.
The lakes, waters, and access points. So interesting.
It's nothing we want to get involved in.
No, I agree.
What is that?
What is what?
The Municipal Waterways Improvement and Maintenance Fund.
That's a state thing. I don't know anything about it.
You know, I think I'll look that up and see what I can find online.
Maintenance of breakwater, retaining walls, piers, wharfs, moorings, as well as law enforcement and fire prevention.
Yeah, but how? How is that,
Who knows?
How
I
are-
mean,
you know,
how-
is there any way for us to say, hey, we got to deal with this, whatever it is, we request some of those funds?
right.
Only way.
Well,
I-
keep in mind that there's two sets, in a sense, there's two sets of funds. There's the funds that go to the state into that waterways improvement and maintenance fund.
Yeah.
And then there's the portion that goes to Stow
Yeah.
for Stow's
General.
use for whatever they want.
Right, and
yeah.
Stow can do whatever they want, but our
Right.
question is, what
Yeah.
is this? I'll look that up.
So
Yeah,
Dan, my feeling is that the only way we would benefit from that is to get a grant.
Wow,
Probably.
great, let's go for it.
do they need to do any grants that are useful?
Yep.
Most of that is ocean and rivers.
Shall we put it as a topic on the agenda? I'll do a little homework before then.
Yeah, we can just add it. I don't know, we'll see, because we were thinking that our next meeting might be a single topic.
Yes, that would be for the subsequent meeting.
Right, okay. All
Yep.
right. So, any other new business? Nope. All right. So date of next meeting, I think so. Obviously, I need to reach out to Solitude. But I want to get a sense for options. It's probably, we're going to probably be looking at something in December, because you guys want to get it done before.
Yeah,
your-
does it need to be an evening meeting or can it be a daytime meeting? I mean, I'm just wondering what it's really, I think solitude's the bigger constraint here. I'll
Yep.
just say that, between now and, the 24th, I'm pretty open.
Okay.
Me too.
Okay, all right, so and at this point, we, and Red, would you be able to, I'm not saying every day, but in general, might you be available if we had like a morning meeting or a early afternoon?
Generally, yeah.
Okay, and Dave, would you want to definitely be involved? Should we include you as we try to schedule?
I'd be happy to participate.
Okay, so should we schedule with you in mind, like if I can query out and see if a certain date works for, the 4 or 5 of us? Sounds
Yeah,
like yes.
I'm generally free, yeah, okay.
Okay, all right. Okay, sounds good. Then I will see what we can put together on that. And I think it's a good call about maybe it'd be a daytime meeting, Dan, because that way it's not after hours for them. Okay, so we'll hold on date of next meeting till I can get some feedback on that. And I think that's the end of our meeting today.
And then if there is, per Conray's method, if it turns out we need to have a meeting about the RFP, we'll hear back from either of you, and if so, then we'll have a special meeting for that we'll schedule. But for now, we don't believe we'll need one.
Correct. Yep. All right.
I move we adjourn.
So,
Well, wait a minute, do we have a date for our next meeting?
hang on, Dave, you had a question?
Oh, I just had a comment. If you're looking for a place for the town to spend the excise tax, I think our dam rebuild is going to easily use a lot more than that.
It's an interesting point. Yeah. Okay, so Conrad, your question about a next meeting, we're gonna see when we can get the meeting scheduled with Solitude. So we're looking sometime in December, but date TBD based on what we can get with them.
Yep.
Good.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, motion to adjourn. A second.
Second.
Okay,
Debatable.
and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi, Dick.
Excellent.
Guys.
Okay,
All right,
bye.
thank you all.
Okay,
Have
thank
a
you.
great night now.
Right.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.